Accountants equals boring people with calculators. My uncle typed into the family group and a stream of laughing emojis burst like cheap fireworks. No creativity. No life. Someone added a yawning gif. Someone else wrote, "Numbers girl strikes again." The ping 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 was a drumline I didn't ask for. It shouldn't have stung. But it did, the way a paper cut finds salt. My palms warmed. My throat went tight. The chat kept blooming with jokes and tiny haha faces, and a familiar old ache woke up in my chest, the kind that smells like childhood. You're useful, not special. Hi everyone, my name is Noel Hart, and I make order out of chaos for a living. Balance sheets, reconciliations, little threads of truth hiding inside big, messy piles. People think numbers are cold. They don't know how they keep you alive. I watched my uncle's profile photo, the one of him in mirrored sunglasses, hover over his punchline like he'd won something. I typed, "Not funny," then deleted it. Typed, "You know that stereotype costs people money?" Deleted that too. The family chat kept roaring, and in the middle of their noise I felt a softness gather. Silence is a language too. So I left the group without a word. That winter crawled by in gray seams. I kept my head down, worked double season, jogged at dawn past bare sycamores, fixed coffee that tasted like resolve. At night, I reread policies the way some people reread love letters. Home insurance clauses and municipal codes, floodplain maps with blue veins squeezing through our zip code. My uncle's new patio? The one he bragged he guide for cheap? I remembered the photos. Flagstones sloping toward his foundation like a tilted plate of rain. Spring arrived like a held breath finally let go. Thunder stitched itself across the sky. Gutters gargled. The creek behind our neighborhood stood and grew shoulders. At 5:12 a.m. my phone buzzed. Uncle Ray. Then again. Then again. When I answered, his voice was already drowning. "No, Phil, my yard's a lake. It's pouring into the basement. The walls sweating, the floors, God. My tools, your aunt's keepsakes. Do you know someone? Anyone? Insurance?" What do I say? The hallway light painted a pale stripe across my floor. Water hammered the roof like a million tapping fingers. I padded to my desk, opened a folder labeled documents. Ray, and felt the old ache turn to something patient and precise. "I hear you," I said quietly. "Hold on a second." Then I scrolled, found exactly what I needed, and sent him a screenshot. The typing bubble on his side appeared, vanished, reappeared, like a heartbeat losing rhythm, while outside the storm pressed its ear to the house and listened. The screenshot I sent was from his own insurance policy, the clause he'd bragged about helping me edit last fall. The one I'd quietly corrected after noticing he'd deleted the flood coverage to save on premiums. For a long time the typing dots blinked, then stopped. Silence. I set my phone down beside my coffee mug and listened to the rain working its way through every gutter in the neighborhood. My phone lit again, 3 missed calls, then a message. "Please tell me you're joking." Another followed. "You knew about this?" Noel Hart, boring accountant with a calculator. The irony was thick enough to taste. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead I walked to my window. Across the street the storm had turned the world silver. Streetlights shimmered in the puddles. I thought about the years of mockery, how my family laughed whenever I corrected their taxes, balanced their budgets, found their missing deductions. I had always been Noelle the numbers girl, never Noelle who saved us thousands. I remembered that family barbecue last summer. My uncle standing on that same patio, beer in hand, telling everyone how he'd built it himself to prove you don't need a fancy engineer for simple things. I'd smiled then, said nothing even when I noticed the slope. Numbers and water share one truth. They always find their way down. The next morning photos flooded the group chat, his yard, his basement, all underwater. The laughing emojis were gone, replaced by anxious ones. "So sorry, Ray. Hope insurance helps. Praying for you." He called again that night, voice smaller, soaked with fear. "Noel, the foundation's cracked. They say 17,000 at least. Please, I didn't know. Can you help me file something?" I looked at my reflection in the dark window. Tired eyes, steady breath. "I can," I said slowly. "But first I'll need you to stop calling me boring." The line went quiet. Then a faint, humbled laugh. "Fair." Outside the storm thinned to drizzle. Inside the silence felt cleaner than forgiveness, like a balance finally settling to zero. For weeks after the flood, Uncle Ray called me kiddo again. softly like the word itself was an apology. He sent daily updates about the repair crews, the smell of damp concrete, how his basement looked like the Titanic after the iceberg. I listened, offered short, polite answers and kept my heart quiet. But the family chat stayed restless. My cousins posted memes about karma and flood warnings for people with loud mouths. My aunt tried to make peace, writing, "Noelle's just lucky she's smart with money. Lucky." As if discipline and sleepless nights filing other people's chaos into order were some roll of dice. At work, my desk lamp cast a warm circle on my spreadsheets while the office outside dimmed. I stared at the columns of figures, the calm logic of them. People were predictable when you followed their patterns long enough. Even the ones who mocked you. 3 weeks later he called again. This time his voice sounded lighter. "Insurance still fighting me," he said. "But the contractor says if I can cover a few thousand he'll start sooner. Think you could help with paperwork? You're good with that stuff." It wasn't a question. It was a habit. I almost said yes. Almost fell back into that quiet role they'd built for me. Helpful, invisible, safe. Then I remembered the night of the meme, the laughter, and the ache I'd swallowed whole. "Ray," I said gently, "I already did the paperwork months ago. Remember? I tried to help you apply for flood coverage last September. You said, and I quote, 'That's for people who don't trust their own construction skills.'" He exhaled hard through the phone like the truth stung. Silence stretched between us. Heavy, necessary. I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the small succulent plant by my keyboard. Its leaves glossy under the light. Quiet survival. No drama, no apologies. "Guess I misjudged that," he said finally. "Maybe you're not boring after all." I smiled faintly. "No, uncle. I'm just precise." Outside, spring sunlight finally cut through the last of the rain clouds. The storm had ended. But its lesson was still dripping, one calculation at a time. By June the repairs were still halfway done, and my uncle's pride was leaking faster than his basement. Every weekend he texted small questions, about estimates, invoices, interest rates, each one softer than the last. He never mentioned the meme again. But others did. My cousin Tara posted a new one. "Some accountants count numbers. Others count consequences." He tagged me with a wink. I didn't reply. Silence had become my favorite language. It translated everything perfectly. That summer the family finally invited me to the 4th of July barbecue. The same patio, now patched, uneven but standing. When I arrived, the air smelled of grilled corn and humility. My uncle hovered near the cooler, quieter than usual. His sunglasses were gone. Maybe he'd realized mirrors can reflect too much truth. He offered me a beer. "Glad you came," he said. And, "Sorry about that joke." The words landed soft but honest. I nodded. "You know," I said, "calculators don't make people boring. They just make sure people remember what they owe." He chuckled, awkward, then raised his can. "To remembering." As fireworks cracked above us, I watched my family's laughter twist through the smoke. They looked smaller now, not in size but in certainty. The same people who once teased me now lingered when I spoke, asked advice they used to ignore. Respect, it turns out, doesn't arrive with applause. It arrives quietly, like rain correcting a slope. Later that night, as I helped clear plates, I noticed my uncle staring at the flood stains still etched faintly along the patio wall. "Think it'll happen again?" he asked. "Depends," I said, rinsing a dish. "Did you fix the drainage angle?" He hesitated. "I hired someone this time." The answer made me smile, not out of spite but relief. Some lessons only stick when the foundation cracks. As I drove home, the air was cool and clean. Street lights shimmered across puddles drying on the asphalt. I rolled the window down, feeling the breeze brush my arm like quiet validation. Sometimes revenge isn't fire, it's precision. And sometimes the cleanest victory sounds just like this. Silence after the storm. The meme incident became family folklore. My aunt retold it at every dinner like a cautionary tale. Don't tease someone who files your taxes. Everyone laughed, but I could hear the sincerity hiding underneath. Still, something shifted between my uncle and me, not hostility, not warmth, just awareness. He began asking for my opinion before doing things. It was strange, almost unsettling, to watch someone who once mocked my career now depend on its logic. One evening he called unexpectedly. "Hey, I'm refinancing the house to cover repairs. The bank sent me these forms. Mind checking them?" "Sure." I said, though part of me hesitated. When the PDFs arrived, I opened them and froze. The contractor had added hidden fees, layering small overcharges in the fine print. Numbers that looked harmless but weren't. I spent the next hour highlighting every line, every deceit. It was surgical work. Then I attached the file with a note. Found $6,480 of creative math. Might want to ask your cheap contractor about that. 10 minutes later he called again, voice half grateful, half embarrassed. You saved me again, kiddo. I owe you big time. I smiled to myself. Just doing what boring people with calculators do. For a moment we both laughed. It wasn't forgiveness. It was something steadier, recognition. A week later my aunt texted me privately. You know, Ray's been bragging about you lately. Says you're the smartest person in the family. He used to say I was the dullest, I replied. People grow, she wrote. Sometimes they just need to drown a little first. Her words lingered all night. I realized then that I hadn't wanted revenge as much as I wanted clarity. To stop being the punchline in a family that worshipped noise. When I finally slept, I dreamt of numbers floating on dark water. Bright, orderly, untouchable. The next morning, sunlight touched my desk like a quiet apology from the universe. And for the first time I didn't open the family chat. I didn't need to. My silence had already rewritten the story. Autumn came with colder winds and quieter chats. My uncle's repairs were finally done. New foundation, new patio, even a professional drainage system this time. He sent me photos like small peace offerings. I replied with a thumbs up emoji, nothing more. Sometimes distance is the healthiest reply. Then one morning I woke to a knock on my door. When I opened it, Uncle Ray stood there. No swagger, no sunglasses, holding a box of pastries and an envelope. For your help, he said. You didn't just save my house. You saved me from my own arrogance. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. He sat at my kitchen table, eyes scanning the minimalist order of my home. You really do live like your spreadsheets, he said. I smiled faintly. Numbers don't lie. They just wait for people to notice. He slid the envelope across the table. It's a check, he said. 17,000. The amount I lost. Thought maybe I'd pay that debt in gratitude. I blinked, surprised. Ray, why? Because no one else would have helped me. And I mocked you. I was wrong. His voice trembled slightly, the way someone sounds when they're standing at the edge of humility for the first time. I pushed the envelope back. You don't owe me anything, I said. You just needed to learn what happens when you underestimate the quiet ones. We sat there for a moment, the clock ticking between us like a metronome of peace. He finally smiled. You're not boring, Noel. You're a force. After he left, I opened the window, letting cool air sweep through. The city smelled of wet leaves and beginnings. I realized that revenge hadn't been the goal. It had been restoration. Sometimes you don't have to destroy someone to teach them. You just have to let the math of life balance itself. That night, I logged back into the family chat for the first time in months. A new message popped up. Accountants equals architects of order. And beneath it, a single heart emoji from Uncle Ray. Winter returned quietly, as if testing whether our family had learned anything since the flood. The chat was calmer now. No memes, no mockery. Just birthday wishes, photos of dinners, and the occasional, "Noel, can you check this tax form?" I didn't mind. I'd rather be respected for my usefulness than laughed at for my silence. One afternoon I got a call from my cousin Tara. Hey, she said, Uncle Ray's thinking of starting a small contracting business. Wants your help with the budgeting. I paused. He's doing construction again? Yeah, she laughed softly. Says this time he's doing it by the book. When we met, he had blueprints spread across his dining table, this time neatly leveled and labeled. I'm calling it Foundation First, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Figured it was time I learned what that word actually means. I studied the papers, then looked at him. You're really doing this? Yeah, he said, smiling. And I want you on board as my financial advisor. Paid, of course. For a second I just stared at him. The same man who once reduced my worth to a calculator now wanted me to help him build something that lasted. The irony was so poetic it almost hurt. I'll think about it, I said, pretending to weigh the offer. He nodded, patient. No rush. I just trust you, Noel. That night I found myself staring at the rain sliding down my window. It wasn't a storm, just a gentle rhythm, steady, kind. For the first time, I didn't see the flood that ruined his house. I saw the lesson that rebuilt both of us. Maybe revenge doesn't always end in a scream or a slammed door. Sometimes it ends in a signed contract, in mutual respect, in growth that sneaks up on you quietly. When I finally texted him back, I wrote, "Let's build something solid this time." He replied instantly, "Already started, thanks to you." And outside, the rain kept falling, not to destroy but to cleanse. The business took shape slowly, like a second chance built brick by brick. Foundation First became more than a clever name. It became a living apology, a new rhythm of humility and precision. Ray handled the clients, I managed the numbers. For once, he listened before he spoke. Every Friday, he'd drop by my office with fresh coffee and receipts. "I finally get it," he'd say. "Structure saves lives." I'd smile, checking his columns, balancing his hope with reality. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. The man who once mocked order now worshipped it. The first project we completed was a modest family home near the creek. Raised foundation, clean angles, perfect drainage. When the inspector approved it without revision, Ray looked at me like a man seeing his own redemption written in blue ink. "You're the reason I didn't quit," he said quietly. "You taught me that silence doesn't mean weakness, it means certainty." A year later, the same family group chat lit up again. "Aunt Lisa, look what Ray built." Local paper featured his company. "Tara, proud of both of you." "Ray, couldn't have done it without Noel, our family's calculator with a soul." The chat filled with clapping emojis, not laughter this time, respect, not ridicule. I stared at the screen, that same familiar ache in my chest, but softer now, changed. Maybe peace isn't loud. Maybe it sounds like recognition whispered in the right tone. That night, I walked past my uncle's new house. The yard lights glowed amber against smooth stone, no cracks, no puddles. The air smelled of earth and promise. I thought about that old meme, accountants equals boring people with calculators. Maybe we are. But our revenge is quiet, structured, and permanent. We don't shout when we win. We balance the world until it makes sense again. I turned off my phone, let the cool night wrap around me, and smiled, not out of pride but completion. The numbers, the storm, the silence, all finally aligned.